All right. Shabbat shalom to everyone, and welcome to the river. Wherever you may be in the world, and all those gathered here today, it's so nice to see everyone. We pray that your Sabbath will be blessed indeed. And for those who are perhaps joining us on the video and maybe never come to be with the community live, and you've been thinking about whether you want to come join us or not, as we do every Sabbath, to have those that have come in and to join us live, all you do is you'll come in and you'll subscribe. So we gather every Sabbath at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, wherever that may be in the world for you. That is our anchor time. And if you do want to come and join us, you're led there. Just go to River Branch website. Go to the River Branch website at riverbranchfellowship.com. And on the home page there, you'll be able to scroll down and you'll see a subscribe button. And just put in your first and last name and an email address, and we will send you out the weekly newsletter. This keeps you in touch with the community, but also gives you the live link to come and join us. And you'll just click on that and you can join us live via Zoom. Okay. We are looking at this series of the character Messiah and how that integrates into certain matters that we face. And I've got this ominous sort of picture there. And the title of today's teaching is Religion and the Beast. And so what is this that we're dealing with? And we, in this series, have looked to Messiah. And so we've been a lot in the Brit Hadashah as a result of that, as in his actual walk here on the earth when he came to visit us in the flesh and to let us see and understand the faith in a practical, living sense in the time domain. And so we have an Elohim that hasn't asked us to do anything he wasn't willing to do himself. And so he came and led us and showed us the way. And so as a part of that, we've looked at the character of Messiah and how it relates to the things that we face and some of the things that he displayed as a part of his witness. And of course, when he was here, he was dealing with two big things, religion and the beast. And so we have got this with us and has been with us since this great witness of Messiah. And so how did he sort of interact and deal with these matters? And so we'll look at this again. This is very practical in a lot of sense of how it relates to all of us in this journey, but also to how he dealt with it. And of course, we're aspiring, as we've said in the series, to look at and growing to the stature and the fullness of Messiah. So what did he witness to all of us? And so that'll be around religion and the beast today. I've got a quote up here by Franklin Patrick Herbert Jr., and he was the American science fiction author, best known for his work with the Dune series and things like that. He was also a journalist, photographer, book reviewer, and lecturer. But he makes a statement here that is very true. And that I agree with. When religion and politics ride in the same cart, the whirlwind follows. So there's a very interesting statement that he's identifying here. When you bring these two and they are together, it is going to lead to the whirlwind. Well, what is that? Well, let's turn to the word to get a little bit better understanding of that. This is from the great prophet Hosea in chapter 8, 6-8. He's saying this as a part of the message that he was going to give leading into and just before the coming of Messiah. He says, "For it is from Israel craftsmen made it." So something's come from Israel. And the calf of Samaria has been broken into pieces. So something has come from his people that shouldn't be there. For they sow the wind. Now, the wind here, the ruach, and in Hebrew, this breath, this spirit, this breath of air. But it also gets into, we tend to think of this only in its sort of positive context as it relates to the ruach hakodesh, or the set-apart breath. But there's also another side to this, which is empty thing, temper, anger, impatience. discontented, unaccountable, uncontrollable desire, sorrow, trouble. What's interesting is when we look at this, it's like going, okay, so what wind are we talking about here? For they shall reap the whirlwind. And this is where we have the sufah in Hebrew. This is a strong wind. And the root of this, the suf, to cease, to come to an end, to make an end. So we've got something that is actually being referenced, that this is a troublesome, a sorrow, an angry thing that is going to come and bring it to its end. The standing grain has no heads, yet it shall yield no flour. For it were to yield, strangers would devour it. Israel, as in his people, is swallowed up. Already they are among the nations. And so he's identifying the scattering of, particularly in this instance, the scattered 10 tribes of the house of Israel who were judged for their spiritual adultery. As a vessel in which no one delights. So there's a reference here that the great prophet Hosea is making that relates to a whirlwind, that relates to spiritual adultery. There is something that we're partaking of that is identified, that is associated with what we'd call modern day religion. There's a warning here as to how the scattered house is behaving. So, last week we looked at, was the character of Messiah here on earth wise? And so we went through that, and what is this wisdom, and do we need it today? And of course we looked at this way of death. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but Yahweh's the heart. So ultimately this is going to be a heart matter. And so we're looking at all of these things, and nothing more than religion do we try to do and look at things that are right in our own eyes. But yet there is a matter of the heart, and we're heading ultimately for a heart judgment at the judgment seat of Messiah. And so sometimes we can get caught up in all sorts of things involved with religion. We looked at this wisdom and understanding last week. It says, how much better, this is from the Proverbs 16:16. How much better to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. And this was very interesting if we get into the Hebrew on this, the chachma and the chacham, as to what it relates to. And then, of course, understanding the binah. And this actually relates to discernment and understanding, to be able to distinguish the difference of things. And I linked this last week directly to what was mentioned in 2 Timothy 2:20. Now, in a great house, the house of Israel, there are vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honorable use, some for dishonorable use. Basically, what it's saying is there are vessels of wisdom and discernment in this great house. And so Timothy's connecting into, he's very well aware of the writings of the ancient scriptures at this time. Again, there was no New Testament as such, or Brit Hadashah when this was written. So they are referencing an understanding that came from the ancient writings. So are we vessels of wisdom and discernment? Religion is found wanting very much on this front. We also looked in Bereshit in Genesis 6:11-12, that what had happened before the great judgment of the flood, the earth had been filled, and the earth was filled with violence. So there's a judgment coming from this. And he saw the earth was corrupt, and all of flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. Now, there's some deeper issues in relationship to this, and even some of the tampering that was going on physically with DNA and stuff at the time. But just as in the days of Noah. So we've got this violence and this corrupting of flesh. And Messiah said that at the end of the age, we are going to see this once again. So we looked at matters surrounding that and how that affects us. And of course, we looked at this whole social media and this phenomenon of brain rot coming in, and how there's actual studies linking to behaviors that have been associated with murderers and things like that, and studies done over the years, and how that's affected certain parts of the brain, and how, interestingly enough, what social media and these modern ways of living are actually achieving this, particularly in our younger generations now, where we are actually seeing this particular area of the brain being affected and showing the exact same thing. And so is brain rot, and will it lead to violence? And are we starting to see more violent behavior occurring, particularly in the younger generations? And so we looked at that, how we are losing responsibility, accountability, and consequence. These three are the great pillars of a functional, healthy society. If they are not understood and they are taken away, we are going to end up losing our way and becoming violent. And we are seeing this trend go down. For the sake of making the example here, I'm just showing these sort of modern generations and how we understand them, and that this slide of responsibility, accountability, consequence is being lost from one generation to the next. And so just as in the days of Noah, we are heading for violence, and our world is becoming more and more violent as we get closer to the end of the age. So we spoke about that. And the poor last generation in this right now is Gen Alpha. We are just starting to see Beta coming in to the equation with the children of the millennials. But generally speaking, we have a very serious thing occurring because Gen Alpha has never known a world that is not having an accelerated tools that can actually generate this brain rot. And we're seeing a lot of disturbing behaviors happening with Gen Alpha as a result. And so none of this is a real surprise. So how do we apply wisdom to all of this? And so this was the things we were looking at. There's a sound warning that we looked at. It's recorded in the words of Messiah, Matthew 24, 21, 22. And I used the example, a big one, a topical one, of this AI coming in. And we are reaching levels which are soon will cross a Rubicon. And how we deal with this responsibly as a society, the experts are kind of sort of in this whole world are putting out warnings and are trying to go, well, can we actually control this part of the beast system? And so we just looked at a little bit of that. But the reason why I was alluding to AI was that this is an example where if we don't have the wisdom, if we don't have the foundations of society and we play with such things, we may not have the wisdom to implement this in a healthy, safe way. And of course, this is the warning of the inside experts. Now, ultimately, this is a passage that Messiah is saying, don't worry. Okay, it's not going to finish you. Some of the experts, at least some believe that it's so serious that this represents an existential threat to the survival of humanity. A part of this was, yes, we're going to need wisdom, but also a part of this is Messiah is going, don't worry, I've got this. AI is not going to destroy everyone. He's not going to allow it. So we don't live with the fear, ultimately, of we're going to be extincted by, losing control of getting into super intelligence with artificial intelligence. But the point was, this is a true concern for a world that is losing its fundamental ability to operate as a society, and now we are bringing in such tools. Is wisdom needed? Is the wisdom of Elohim needed at this time? Most certainly. And it appears it'll get to such a point where he will have to step in. And then, of course, I was making the final point that as we grow and mature in Messiah, impart that wisdom, it's not a wisdom of this age, and what we think of as knowledge and things like that, and what our rulers come up. But there is something that comes with growing in Messiah, where there is a secret and hidden wisdom of Elohim. And he's decreed this before the ages for our glory, before the time domain. Very interesting. We'll talk more about this at Sukkot. But one of the things, this illusion here, is there is something that is going to come with growing to the stature of Messiah. There is a wisdom that we need. And it's also something that he actually keeps hidden unless we will seek out these great pearls, these great understandings of his character. So in other words, a world that will not repent, will not turn to Elohim and their Messiah, will indeed be lacking of this wisdom. And of course, this will lead us to a lot of the things before the return of the King that we read about in a world that has simply lost its way. It did what was right in its own sight. It thought it was wise, but yet it did not have the wisdom of Elohim. and of Messiah. Okay, so was the character of Messiah here on earth peaceful? So we've looked at this strong, this kind, this wise. But what did he do with all of this? You know, as we've gone through with this, was it peaceful? So he's walking here on the earth, and is this what we are seeing? Because he's going to face religion and the beast. So a religious system and a beast system. Just going to put up here from the Proverbs 6:16. It says, there are 6 things that Yah hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Okay, so this 7th is an abomination. And he says, haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, the violence there, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil. So we're all participating of the tree of the knowledge and good and evil, but this tends to go towards the evil side of this tree or partaking of. A false witness who breathes out lies. Now the 7th becomes an abomination. The one who sows discord among brothers. This is very direct to us as followers of the faith. Really interesting here. This isn't pointed at the unbelievers. The thing he hates is those who are sowing discord among his people. Now, we really have got to understand this, because sometimes we can try and read these things third party, don't we? Well, that's not me. No, this is actually speaking about his people, and what our Elohim, our creator, our Messiah is looking at us going, these are the things that I hate. And it's all character based. It's all a reflection of our behavior. What behavior does our character produce? And the one that is an abomination is that which sows discord amongst the brothers and sisters. We should take this very serious, because this isn't my opinion or your opinion. This is his. And the behavior that we see in the religious, those supposedly of the faith, is staggering on this front. And the divisions that we see in the factions of Judaism and all the denominations and movements and cults and things like this going on the religious side, all of these things that we see going on, this discourse among the brethren. In other words, I believe that it's an abomination to him because it does nothing but seek to divide his people. It's division. So these 6 things, this he that sows discourse among the brethren, why would he hate this? And did he reflect this when he was actually here on earth? Now, this is interesting because he's dealing with a religious and a beast system that doesn't have the wisdom of Elohim, as we looked at last week, but then a religious system which claims to. Interesting. Just going to mention this scripture here. This is contained in Acts 20, 27 to 30 here. The context here is Paul is speaking actually to the Ephesian elders, okay? And there's something he's going to talk about here. For I did not shrink from declaring you the whole counsel of Elohim. In other words, the whole plan of redemption, all of the appointed times, what it actually leads to. Again, remember, we do not have a New Testament at this time. The whole counsel is the Torah and the prophets and all that is contained therein. Pay careful attention to yourself and to all the flock. So look in the mirror and now look to the wider body, in which the Ruach has made you overseers. So he's speaking to a servant leadership position, the elders of the Ephesians, to care for the Kahal of Elohim, the people of Elohim, which he obtained with his own blood. Not ours, not yours, his. And there's something that he hates, this discourse among the brethren. I know that after my departure, fierce wolves, those who take, they don't give, they're always taking. They're engulfed with the disease of themitis. Ones who think that arguing doctrine is somehow living out your faith. and causing discontent everywhere, not earnestly seeking to understand truth with others. No, these are the ones that are actually going to come in and sow discourse among the brethren. Paul's identifying them as wolves. They will come in among you, not sparing the flock. In other words, there are little ones there. He refers to us as children and sheep. There are ones there that are not mature yet in the faith, and these ones will come in sowing the discourse. And he's warning the overseers of the elders at Ephesians, watch for these people. And from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things. Diastrepho. In the Greek, this is distort, turn aside, to oppose, to plot against, to turn aside from the right path, to pervert, corrupt, and turn around to oneself. In other words, to lead you out of repentance. They will speak things that will actually take you from a place of repentance, turn to Elohim and each other. And as a result, they draw away disciples after them. So these people that he's warning about will come in, they will not spare those who are young in the faith. They will sow discord among the brethren, and they will actually speak things that will lead to people actually turning away from repentance and following them. Pretty serious warnings to what's going on to the overseers in Ephesus at this time. The Ephesian elders, and this is the warnings almost 2,000 years ago. I'd suggest to you that this warning is just as strong now. And in fact, we could not look at the religious landscape over the last almost 2,000 years if this were not so. I read this almost 2,000 years later, and I realize Paul's words were wisdom. And he's speaking it to the overseers. Watch out for this. And here we are almost 2,000 years later, and these words from the Apostle Paul to the Ephesian elders have not aged. And in fact, they were vindicated, if we're to be honest, with the fruit of religion over the last almost 2,000 years in so many ways. So, peace requires kindness, strength, and wisdom. The scripture here in Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of Elohim. Not blessed are those who argue doctrine, not those who sow discourse, not those who think they are above everyone else in the body and think nothing to hurt those who are trying to understand the faith. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the son of Elohim. The Poios in the Greek, peacemaker. The root of this is a feminine noun, the irene, interestingly enough, almost like a bridal illusion that will bring a state of national tranquility or tranquility to the house of Israel. Interesting. Peace between individuals, harmony, prosperity, safety. This is interesting. The final extension or telos of this particular word in the Greek is the eternal state. Interesting. The peacemakers will be called the sons of Elohim. This is referring to something that is a wisdom that we need to understand now. Our character is being tested now. Our walk is being tested now, but it's going to go into an eternal state. And those will be the ones that are of the eternal family. So, when he looks at our walk today, are we the peacemakers? Or are we the ones acting in a way that is an abomination to him? Because if we're going to go into an eternal state and be called sons of Elohim, what character will we display? Characters of peace. When we look at the Torah and the prophets, there's some interesting things here. I've just got Avraham here. He chose not to escalate conflict, actually, when their herdsmen clashed over the land resources. Instead, he proposed a peacemaking separation type solution. In other words, he was displaying a certain type of character, a peacemaking character. Very interesting. How about Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers? Then he ends up rising to power in Egypt. Then faces his very siblings that had wronged him during this time of famine. Instead of seeking vengeance, he chooses a path of repentance, forgiveness, understanding, and reconciliation. An act of peacemaking that will go on to birth the house of Israel. Very serious, the actions of these characters of peace that we see. Doesn't mean they weren't strong and kind and wise. Doesn't mean they were nice and weak. It's none of the things that describe these. But yet when they were facing these key fundamental moments concerning the house of Israel, you see very different actions coming from them in a kind, strong, and wise way. They're peacemakers. Moshe, would you associate that with peacemakers? Oh, he indeed interceded on behalf of the people as a mediator between Elohim and the people of Israel. During moments of divine wrath or potential thereof, when Israel's disobedience threatened to undo the covenant with Elohim, these acts of mediation reveals a profound understanding that Moshe had regarding the understanding of divine justice and mercy. We'll talk about more about mercy next week. Often taking personal responsibility, accountability, and potential consequence associated with this. He was willing to sacrifice for the sake of this peacemaking, while the house of Israel was understanding who they were and who their Elohim was. This humble man, the most humble, yet he was kind, strong, and wise. Make no mistake about it. And his wisdom produced a certain type of behavior that allows us all to be here and have a faith today. Sowing discourse did not get us here. We are here despite that by the mercy of Elohim. How about Jonathan? Did not choose to side in conflicts. This is interesting. He embodied this essence of a peacemaker, navigating the treacherous waters between his father, King Saul, and his beloved friend David. This is interesting. He became the bridge between King Saul and David. You mean that Jonathan, who even would have had the biased presuppositions of his family, his father, and King Saul, still chose to go a certain way? And then, of course, we see King David himself. King Saul hunted David down due to jealousy after David's success and praise he received from the people. This actually brought Saul into a state of fear of losing the throne. Saul's paranoia led him to actually attempt to kill David on multiple occasions. Nonetheless, when David had the opportunity to kill Saul, he didn't. Interesting. Instead, he spared Saul's life twice, even cutting a piece of Saul's robe off and choosing not to harm him. This is demonstrating his respect for Saul's authority as Yah's anointed king at that time. King David would go on to become king, a man after his own heart, and then would become the seed line to the very coming of Messiah himself. Isn't this interesting? Now, he would have to face things as the king and deal with matters of war, of course. And because of that, his son was going to be chosen to actually deal with establishing the temple. That's why we call it Solomon's temple. But if you actually know when he was given this, at 13 years old, I believe, or roughly there around, you already have Messiah identifying David as a man after his own heart. And there was a certain part of his character that I believe was very highly regarded. So even though he'd faced war as a king, his heart ultimately was revealed with this whole journey with Saul and whatnot. How about Abigail? Her account, I think, is particularly noteworthy because of her skillful use of humility and wisdom. Incredible. Story unfolds her story in this moment of crisis, this remarkable ability to navigate conflict with wisdom and diplomacy. When her husband Nabal foolishly insulted David, Abigail takes swift action, didn't she? Demonstrating not only courage, but also astute understanding of the gravity of the situation. She sought to be a peacemaker at this time. Rather than succumbing to fear and anger, she prepared a generous offering and set out to intercept David, embodying the essence of an intercessor. Truly, I believe, a bridal shadow picture for the age to come. It's very interesting what we're actually seeing. All of these characters had this peace component to them. I'm just going to mention here, we looked at this, I call it the X factor. Is this a matter of understanding authority and matters of the faith? We looked last week at this whole generational thing. This time, because I am one, I'm going to pick on Generation X because it was this incredible little period in time. And the characteristics, and again, this is generalizing, okay, not everybody falls into this in any one of these, so-called identified generations. It's just for the purpose so that we can have this conversation when we look at this generational slide. So do not take personal offense on this. But we looked at the responsibility, accountability, consequence trend. Well, the reality of this is that there's a certain thing that all involves self here that has happened with all of these generations, okay? Because we have this disease of self. So what happened to the disease of self? Well, the builders, and especially gone through the Second World War and whatnot, became self-determined. In other words, okay, we're going to rebuild this. We're going to, find this new way. And they'd gone through incredible hardships and times upon the earth. This gave birth to all of this came birth. The boomers came forth and enjoyed a period of time of coming into this time of at least political stability in the world. They became very self-motivated, often considered the boomers to be one of the most selfish generations because they were taking advantage of this time of coming out of turmoil. It's not their fault. It's just that they were raised and given this opportunity that many weren't. As a result of this, though, we now have Gen X that's come in. I've said the very best and the very worst of all of this. Gen X, as a result of what had occurred before, it was left to its own devices. They often referred to as the latchkey generation kids. In other words, we started to experience, because of what had happened with the generation previous, they started to experience parents that were now divorcing. They were chasing the worldly luxuries, goods, all these sorts of things. But there was a lot of divorce that started to occur in these modern generations at the time of Gen X. And if that didn't occur, you often had two parents working. They're pursuing all of these things of the world. Well, this generation, and I'm one of them, I watched what happened to us. Many of us did not have the presence of authority. We became a very self-reliant generation in our form of selfishness. This is what bred the very worst and the very best that I can see. Those who overcame and saw that this was happening to them and worked through this started to value authority even more and the need for it because it was not being given a lot of opportunity to have this. The other side of Gen X was that it fell off the cliff. And I believe became some of the more destructive or hurt or emotionally arrested development people. There's a real split that has gone on here in this generation that became self-reliant. And if you didn't become self-reliant in a healthy way, you became self-reliant in an unhealthy way. And of course, we look at the other generations. The millennials became one of the most self-absorbed generations ever seen. This is when you started to get selfies come in and all this kind of stuff. Everything's about me. And Gen Z is often labeled some of the most self-obsessed now as a result. Everything's about me, me, me. And of course, that reflects right through the whole social media trends and everything else. Unfortunately, what's happening to Alpha is it's becoming one of the most self-destructive now. As we have taken out these pillars of society, we have taken out a healthy understanding of authority, all these things. And so it's really, really difficult. I often watch and look at what's happened to Generation Z, which is generally born out of Gen X, and all of the things that they face now. that Gen X didn't. Gen X had a chance to actually process and deal with things. We didn't have the technology coming. We were going to live this transition. From Gen X down are all technologically very capable, but Gen X got to live a transition in one of the few generations that remembers life without it and actually transitioned into it. It also created a lot of what is facing in the millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. Gen Z has very difficult things facing it right now. And my heart often for this particular generation goes out the most to them. They just did not get the opportunity to be able to deal with things in a healthy way. And so we're seeing this come through. And so I always say, to Gen X and to the boomers, hey, just remember that we had something they didn't. And so if we're just going to go and blame so I say, okay, well, the most self-obsessed generation, oh, well, Curtis is attacking Gen Z. No, I'm not. These are just characteristics that defined these. They're generalizations. But we need to understand what created this and to get to this. And so I'm really picking on Gen X here because I know it so well. I know what happened to this generation. I know what I experienced. And this is when the true understanding of authority was going to be lost or upheld in the greatest of ways. This is where it all happened. Gen X is a very fitting name for this, this weird little part in history. And so anybody who's sitting in that category will be able to relate to a little bit of the things that I'm saying. Okay, so how will these generations govern today? A lot of bullying went on in Gen X, a lot of self-reliance, a lot of being left to their own devices, a lot not learning proper authority. And guess what? We're all running the show right now. So if you have a healthy way of coming out of that generation, you're okay. If you're not healthy, whatever that however that's played out, we're not okay. And so now we're seeing this infiltrate every aspect of the beast system right now. Gen X is the solution and the problem right now. We are running the show. And it's not looking too good, especially for the generations below us. What do we give them? Sorry, Gen X. I know I'm picking on you, but I am one. We have to be honest with this, of what happened in this incredibly short period of time, almost 15 years. That's how quickly it occurred. To understand authority, we need to understand who has the authority. This was lost. What is the situation, the circumstance? If you lose the ability to even value authority, you won't even ask the question who has it in a given moment. Well, this is all over the place now with the generations below. It's not about being a respecter of men, but we need to learn to be respectful towards one another. And that means identifying those who actually have the burden of responsibility and accountability in moments of authority. And if you don't do this, it will lead to trouble. Of course, if you get bad authority, a lot of people are once bitten, twice shy. And so their answer to bad authority is no longer trust authority in general. Now we're in trouble. This started to happen in Gen X in a big way, and it is absolutely accelerated in the generations below it. The answer to bad authority is not no authority. It never was, never will be, never can be. We are heading for a kingdom. The only question is what sort of authority will be running that kingdom? We'll look at that a bit more next week. Let me show you something here in the Proverbs. It says, the righteous increase, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. We'll look at what this looks like in the sense of a kingdom next week. But what's interesting is that many of us are seeing the wicked are ruling now. And so we're groaning, aren't we? We got a lot of things that we're dealing with right now that we don't like or agree with. Well, because we don't like or agree with it, and we actually know that this ruling is not incorporating good wisdom, it's doing all sorts of things around us, so that means we can all behave badly. Messiah says, hey, look, my witness doesn't mean anything because you've got wicked people ruling. Does that sound right to anyone? We get to act differently because we've got bad leaders. We have unwise leaders. I'd suggest to you that our groaning is not a justification for leaving the principles and character of Messiah. It just is. And now we have to face this in a wicked rule situation. But we don't throw out his witness. The stabilizing trust and authority is happening right through the beast system, medical system, education system, legal system, news and media, political system, religious system. There's just wicked rule and bad authority going on all throughout the beast system. And we're all sitting there in a sense of going, well, my goodness, what am I supposed to like this, agree with it, enjoy it? No. Your Elohim hasn't said any of that, but he is allowing it. But for a short time. Bad authority is now ruling. We're heading for collapse as a result, but we are not heading for the end of the world and all this stuff, okay? But we are being allowed to see this slow slide because we need to see the folly of not having him and his character in this world and having the other alternative. And we can clearly see that his ways are right and ours are not. And I think if we're honest and we look around the world right now, and what's going on upon the face of the earth, I would say we could start to see that maybe we need to have his ways and not our ways to come back into play. Would that be fair? What is the cost of not understanding authority in matters of faith? I'll show you an account here. It's interesting. Recorded in 1 Peter chapter 2, 12 to 15. Now, this is interesting here. We've got this thing going down here where Peter's direction, he's saying, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable. Now, at the time, they're in bondage to the Roman Empire. So he's saying, keep your conduct among some honorable. Honor vessels of what? Gold and silver, wisdom and discernment. Keep it honorable as to what is around you. And that when they speak against you as the evildoers, because you're doing this, may they see your good deeds and glorify Yah on the day of visitation. In other words, your witness is going to be despite this. Be subject for Yah's sake to every human institution. Not for their sake, not because you agree or like, for the sake of Elohim. Whether it be the emperor as supreme or the governors, so we're getting into political, we're in the realms of politics here, is sent to him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of Elohim, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of the foolish people. So none of this is about liking, agreeing, and enjoying. It's about the accountability and responsibility comes back on us, doesn't it? Interesting. In Romans 12, 1, 2, it says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Elohim. Oh, who's in control here? Do you know what's being stated here? Messiah is in control. So there's no authority except from Elohim. End of story. He's boss. And those that exist have been instituted by Elohim. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists Elohim as appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Now, this is very interesting. You mean Elohim is allowing what we're seeing on the earth right now in political leadership? Yes. Now, his ways are not our ways. And the reason why he's allowing this is not for you to go, oh, well, I wouldn't do that if I was him. Well, you're not him. Okay? We're in a fallen state and we need to submit to him. And his ways are far above our ways. He didn't ask us to like it. What he's saying is, I need you to be the witness of something. It's easy to be a witness, a good witness, when everything's going your way and it's all wonderful, isn't it? Try being a good witness when it's not. As we do when we gather on Shabbat, praying for the authorities. First of all, then I urge, this is from 1 Titus 2, 1, 3, I urge the supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people. Not just the house of Israel, all people. For kings and all who are in high positions, that they may lead a peaceful, quiet, and godly and dignified in every way. You mean living peaceful amongst this is actually a part of his character and our witness? This is good, and it is pleasing in the sight of Elohim, our Savior. Interesting. I'm going to give you the account here of the centurion soldier. This is recorded in Matthew chapter 8, 8 to 10 here. I've got, and the context here is the centurion servant was had a servant in his house. He's paralyzed. And he was appealing to Messiah for the healing of him. Now, this is interesting. But the centurion replied, "Master, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof." This is a centurion guard of the Roman Empire, and he's looking at Yeshua going, and he's addressing him as master, no less. I'm not worthy to have come under my roof. Wait a minute. Those who have him in bondage are stating this to him? I'd say that this is a centurion soldier who's starting to get something here at a higher level. Maybe he's getting a witness that might have been the good witness. Maybe he's starting to get it that whatever authority you people are operating under is a lot better than the authority that I am, and even implement. Because he actually says this, "For I too am a man under authority." I'm under authority. And I also have soldiers under me. And say, "Go," and he goes, and the other, "Come," and he comes. And to my servant, "Do this," and he does it. He's saying, I relate. I have matters of authority too that I deal with. Isn't it just interesting? Authority is recognizing authority here. When Yeshua heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith." You mean authority and the recognizing and the respect of it was directly related to faith. Wow. This part of this character found with those who would claim the faith. I tell you, many will come from the east and the west and recline at the table of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom from heaven. Ooh, there's a kingdom coming from heaven. I'd suggest to you there's an identity here of at least 3 of the elders around the throne. People are going to come to them in this kingdom from heaven, these great authorities concerning the house of Israel. Interesting. While the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. So in other words, the religious and the ones all playing games of the faith, there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth out there. You guys didn't respect any of this. You weren't peaceable. You disregarded authority. And now you want to recline at the table of authority? Whoa. And the centurion said to Yeshua, and to the centurion, Yeshua said, "Go, let it be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. Isn't this interesting? That which is representing Roman bondage, the authority of the beast system, had such a faith, was not of all this religious stuff, was granted that healing. It would not cause him to stumble. And what he recognized that granted that? Authority. The one who represented the bondage that the house of Israel was under at that time acknowledged a kingdom authority. Wow. Has the beast system become both religious and political today? Are we actually seeing something interesting that we're all living? I've got here, you've all heard of Beauty and the Beast, right? Today's title is Religion and the Beast. This story ends a little different. So any of you that grew up and understand this story of Beauty and the Beast, the one we're in is going to end a little different. There's something not so beautiful, and the beast isn't so beautiful. And so this is going to have to be replaced by a kingdom, a righteous one at this. And so we'll talk again a little bit as we go to understand this as to what's coming and why it's coming. And who's he looking for as a part of that? Is this a part of the test that we're in? So this isn't Beauty and the Beast. We're in religion and the beast, and neither has a future with a coming kingdom. Whoa. 2 Corinthians 4:4, it says this, in the case of the God of this world, okay, so the adversary of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. So through the beast system, he's blinding them through this to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel and the glory of Messiah, who is the image of Elohim. Well, if they are to see Messiah in us, if they are to see the witness of the plan of redemption, he's got to blind them somehow. Would that mean perhaps discrediting our witness? Would that mean confusing our witness? Would that mean maybe leading our behaviors and our way of reflecting the faith being in a very unhealthy way? I'd suggest to you that most people that I see who claim to be agnostic or atheists are only in that position because they have associated whatever understanding they have of Elohim from the very witness they've been given in their life. What witness have we given? What is the adversary doing? Why would he mix these two? Remember the quote at the beginning there. When religion and politics sit in the same cart, it will bring the whirlwind. In the revelation of Messiah, in the book of Revelation 17:1-3, it says, and then one of the seven angels. I read this from various perspectives over and over again every year. Why? Because we are in a great thing going down upon the earth right now. This is the revelation of Messiah. And he speaks about, in this vision that's given to John on the Isle of Patmos, come, let me show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters. In other words, many governments, peoples of the earth. There's a prostitute. She's prostituting the faith, the true faith, with whom the kings of the earth have committed their sexual immorality, and with their wine, and those whose sexual immorality, the dwellers on the earth, who have become drunk. Okay, so this is in spiritual context. So we're doing something at an intimate level with something that he's calling is a prostitute. And he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. So this prostitute is riding this beast that was full of blasphemous names and 7 heads and 10 horns. Something is controlling the waters, and it's a prostituted woman, and she's sitting upon a dreadful beast. Whoa. It takes a huge, we could spend many Sabbaths going back through the history of the last almost 2,000 years and what we've seen actually unfold since Messiah walked the earth. Anyway, it's identified here in the revelation of Messiah, and on her forehead was written the name of mystery, this mysterion, Babylon the Great. In other words, her presence was forged in Babylon. And this is going to relate to a great vision and statue that was given to Daniel for King Nebuchadnezzar, and a judgment that was going to come down upon this. But something came through this in this exile. There was all this type of spirituality that was going to come through, and it's identifying the beginning of this in this mystery. Oh, it's Babylonian in nature. And then she's morphed her prostitution ever since, right through to modern age. The mother of prostitutes. So she's birthing other religions and of the earth's abominations. Interesting. So what's being identified here as a real problem is the rider of the beast at this point, that which is influencing it. I've got here the religious prostitution. Look, we can't go into a history lesson here, but what I can tell you is that the influence that the so-called church, the denominations, the papacy, what happened at the time of Constantine, all these sorts of things has been incredible on how this has played out politically. But there's something that's going on, that's going to go on, that's happening through the last 2 days or almost 2,000 years. This is talked about again in Revelations. We read further on, 17:15-17. And the messenger said to me, so this messenger that had come to John on the Isle of Patmos, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are the peoples, the multitudes, the nations, and the language. So we don't have to guess. She's sitting on this. She's seated on it. And the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. So those of the beast system, they don't like her. She's playing all sorts of games, all sorts of influence, all sorts of nastiness. There'll come a time when they will make her desolate, naked, and devour. This is interesting. Desolate of what? His ruach? Naked. They're going to expose her for what she is. And then they're going to consume her. The devour there is to actually ingest. In other words, take control. This beast system is going to do this. I'm going to actually consume you, expose you, make you desolate of the truth and the power of the Ruach. Very interesting. For Elohim has put into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing the royal power to the beast. You mean the religious as a part of the prostitution of Mystery Babylon the Great. This woman, they in the end are going to hand over what is identified as a royal power to the beast. And the beast is now going to administer her. This until the words of Elohim are fulfilled. Interesting. No wonder we're told later in the revelation of Messiah 18:4-5. Then I heard another voice saying, "Come out of her, my people, get out of her, lest you take part in her missing the mark, lest you share in her plagues." She's being consumed. She's going to be judged. You know what this is a statement of? Stop playing religion. Stop it. Get out. It's all been infected. Infected literally. And those who are in that place of riding and being and playing prostitution in the end will hand over this power to the beast system. For her sins are heaped as high as heaven, and Elohim has remembered her iniquity. So we're told to come out of this. So the prostitute has been consumed as we come to the end of the age. She's been made desolate, exposed, and now ingested into this beast system. Wow. Aren't we supposed to have separation of church and state? Does this even exist? I'm going to tell you, I don't think it does. The beast system is reflected in many different ways right now throughout the world. It's been identified as dreadful through the almost last 2,000 years or last 2 days. It's a modern expression you will see here with the various institutions around the world. These are both political and religious arenas. Make no mistake about it. There is not separation of religion and the beast system. It's all in here in all its various forms now, and it's being ministered upon the earth. This beast, according to scripture, and as identified in Daniel, is dreadful. Much blood is upon its hands. We have a warning here in the Proverbs 24:27. Keep your heart with all diligence, for it has flowed from the springs of life. So put away from you crooked speech, twisted things. Put away your devious thoughts far from you. These things that are what Yah hates, that are going to sow discourse among the true brethren. Ponder the path of your feet. There's a way that seems right to man, and there's a way that is Yah's. Then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Isn't this interesting how modern day politics is completely engrossed in right and left? Have you noticed that? And actually it's saying, don't go right or left. Come out of this thing. This is not what's deciding who you are, the people you are, my ways, your witness, all of these things. You were told you're a Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal. What about right versus wrong? What about his ways? Where have we bought into all of this? They no longer in the beast system. No more moral or values compass is left, except for whatever agenda is now sitting in this system. It's all headed for continual increase in violence, for which more and more totalitarian measures are there in order to justify keeping this thing going. We're all going to lose our freedoms as a result. People will actually do and demand this all in the name of safety as we become more and more violent. Welcome the digital prison and all that the beast system will give you. And now we're heading for it. Mass surveillance, loss of personal freedoms, privacy, etc. It's not, don't be sitting there wondering why these things as if it's some mystery going down. It's purely the outcome of a consumed religious environment into a beast system that literally is absence of the wisdom, the kindness, and the strength, the character of Elohim. Does the truth faith really have its hope in man? What are we doing running around in a political beast system? My hope is in who gets voted in next. Really? How's that gone, if we're honest? Many of you may have played politics, especially over the last 20 years. How'd it go? Is anybody feeling gypped on your vote? Now, I'm not telling you whether to vote or not to vote. What I'm saying is that there is something in the beast system which has actually consumed the religions, the religion side. It's got them participating in all of this. And now the whole thing's muddled up. Who convinced you to pick a political side in this bestial political man and mix it with your faith? Who's done this? Did Messiah really demonstrate this as a way, as a part from his example from the true faith? Did he demonstrate this? I'd say there's something that was very apart from the example of his true faith. We are not asked to like or even agree with all of the political agendas that we're subject to right now on earth in our current bondage. We're not asked to do that. But we are asked to be driven and steered by it as a part, but we were asked to be driven and steered by it as a part of the faith. Why? Why has he put us in this bondage that is doing this? Does he want us to actually make a choice? Do you want to be a part of a religious system consumed by a beast system that's going to actually go down this direction? Or are you going to come out of this? Yet we're told that this beast system is something that we're to give a peaceable behavior around. Isn't this interesting? What's going on? Did we forget we're currently in bondage to the beast system until Messiah? I see so many people misquote things out of the prophets and the Torah and everything else going, oh, we're here to conquer the promised land and it's the Republicans, or we're here to conquer the promised land. It's the, conservatives. And it's like everything I'm reading in scripture says, get out of this. What are you doing? Did we see Messiah behaving this way? In fact, we see such a witness of him that even the bondage he's under is acknowledging his authority. Wow. The trends we're seeing are incredible as this is being devoured. And now we're starting to see, because she hates the religious horse, she's starting to restrict her. And now we're seeing in governments all over the world this increasing efforts to particularly ban aspects of faith, prohibit certain conversations, limit preaching, give preferential treatment to certain religious groups, so on and so on. She's completely consumed, and we're going to see all of these things come in. Let it be no surprise. The beast system is now consumed her, exposing her, and is now going to limit her ability because she no longer controls it. Just something recently happened in Canada's case. It was something called Bill C-19, the repeal of good faith and religious opinion. And it goes on to say the previous criminal code included specific defiance, this is off the government's website, for certain hate propaganda and offenses that when claimed they were expressing in good faith an opinion of religious subject or belief based on religion. This was commonly referred to as good faith religious opinion defense. The law repeals this specific defense. Why? What's going on here? The repeal of this defense does not criminalize religious expression, which is protected under the Canadian Rights and Charter of Rights and Freedom. It does not limit anybody's ability to express religious beliefs in good faith, at least at this time. But what it is doing is it's calling out the bad behavior. Now, this is interesting. When you look at this on the front, you'd say, well, we're losing our freedom of speech. We're losing all of this. Yeah, loss of freedoms. Or is this consequence from the beast system for bad religious prostitute behavior? Do you know that the behavior that they are addressing in this band came from so-called believers of whatever faith they're representing? So what's the beast system going to do to this? And so it all comes in to this matter, at least as regarding our faith, the third of the covenant. Thou shalt not take his name in vain. Did we contribute to the beast system doing this to us? Did our behavior? Some would say no, and some of it's unfair. Maybe it'll be abused. Most certainly by a beast system, sure will. But here's the whole thing. The fact that you're seeing this system do this to her is because of how she acted and what she did. And so if we don't repent and understand this, this is the sort of stuff that we're going to see from the beast system. Are we displaying what he said? Look at the Middle East conflicts right now, politics and religion. Right now, we have something going down upon the earth here that could lead us to very serious end of the age prophecies being fulfilled. By the way, does anybody think it's just political? I'd say the beast system has arrived, a dreadful beast, and what is sitting all mixed in with her? The three great religions of the earth, all clashing with each other. Unbelievable. She's going to make, the beast is going to make us desolate, expose us, consume us. If we don't believe that we are seeing the evidence of this, that the prostitutes warned from Mystery Babylon is now being consumed by a beast system and is now participating in war upon the earth. Not peace, war. Come out of my people. Now people say, wow, Messiah in the temple. In the temple, he's angry. Messiah in the temple angry? How is that peaceable? Right? Isn't that interesting? People love to point this out. I'm like, well, okay, let's just take a look at this a little bit more. Before we do, in Ephesians 4:22-27, the Apostle Paul puts it like this: to put off your old self, which belongs to your formal, to your formal manner, your former character of life, and it's corrupt through its deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self created after the likeness of Elohim, the true righteousness and holiness. Hang on to that word righteousness for next week. Therefore, having put away falsehood, and let each one of you, speak truth, not twisted things, speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry and do not miss the mark. Isn't that interesting? He's not saying, oh, be a wet fish and nice. And, oh, it's okay, brother. You're behaving with discourse and sowing this amongst the brothers and everything else. But that's okay, because, you have some knowledge and some doctrine that you think everybody else has to have shoved down their throat. And then you can go and mistreat everyone. No, it says be angry and do not sin. However, don't allow that to go on and on. In other words, the idiom of don't let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, don't keep your anger going. Address the situation and let people know. Because if we do keep the anger going, it'll lead to bitterness, unforgiveness, and then we give opportunity to the adversary, don't we? So he's saying, if you're angry and not miss the mark, you won't stay in that space for very long. Okay, you'll address the moment. Now, did that happen with Messiah? Was he able to address the moment and yet not miss the mark to become the sinless lamb for all of us, and therefore didn't allow the opportunity for the adversary in that moment to get in? What was the issue that got him so angry? Now, many of us today, if we saw a lot of the character of Messiah, many of us would be offended by him today, just so you know. Okay. In today's modern world, we would take offense to a lot of the behavior of Messiah. He was not trying to offend us. It's just we've gotten to such a state where we don't understand authority. We don't know matters. Everything's based on our feelings. We're in a pursuit of happiness. We're in a prostituted forms of the faith. And suddenly the King of Righteousness shows up and he doesn't behave the way our little mind has made him to behave. The Passover of the Jews was at hand. Okay, so the Passover is coming up. And Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons. Okay, pigeons were a lower form, especially for the poor. And the money changers are sitting there. And he told them, so these sacrifices being prepared for the Passover, particularly the ones that were doing this to the poor who sold the pigeons. This is interesting. He's going after those that actually can't afford much as well. We missed this in this whole thing. It's not just money changers and those selling the oxen and sheep. He's going to particularly be upset with something that is affecting the needy. They're going to take whatever money they have left for this system. Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade. Look at this. In Mark 11, 15, 16, and they came to Jerusalem and he entered the temple and began, right? What did he do? So he's arriving there and he began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables, the money changers and the seats. And again, it mentions, and those who sold pigeons. So this is very, very interesting. Now, this is why when we do the markets at Sukkot, we don't do them on the Sabbaths. Okay, we don't need anybody turning over tables and stuff like that. Look, he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. What's he doing? He's not happy here. He's angry. Would somebody say, well, this is peaceable behavior? Well, it's not unpeaceable. And in fact, people have tried to make this violent. It's not violent behavior, but it is angry behavior. There's no question. Is he angry and yet not missing the mark? He's getting upset with those taking advantage of the poor and those box ticking, especially coming to what? The Pesach. His anger goes as far as, and he was teaching them and saying to them, is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations, but you've made it a den of robbers. You're taking advantage of all of these box tickers and the poor. And the chief priests and the scribes heard it and were seeking a way to destroy him. He's bringing down the industry. But they feared him because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. So you mean in his anger, in his position here right now, he's dealing with the religious aspect of this and what it's doing to the people. And the people are all astonished at this. And when the evening came, they went out of the city. So they didn't let the sun go down in the anger. So this is dealt with. There's a moment that is going on here in time. Buying and selling. Yeshua in this is actually quoting Isaiah 56:7. Is it not written, my house shall be called a house of prayer? So, of course, in Isaiah contain many of the great messianic prophecies. Now, I'm going to show you something here that's not often seen. It's recorded in Luke, or not often thought about in regards to all of this. In Luke 19, 41, 43, it says this, and when he drew near and saw the city, so this is before this moment, he wept over it. Before you're about to see this action, he is in a true place of submission and repentance, but also where is his heart? He's about to do something to display a righteous anger, but he's doing it from a place of grief, not pride, not violence, not all of these things. Do you understand that he's doing this from this place? And many of you who are parents would know that you have had to do things. You've maybe been angry and sin not with the kids, but you're doing it because whatever you're addressing is grieving you. Saying, would that you, and this is what he says, even you had known on this day that the things that make for peace, the irene, a state of national tranquility, exemption from rage, war, peace between individuals, harmony, the peace that leads to salvation, the eternal state. Look at this. The things that make for all of these is what he's saying. But now they're going to be hidden from you. For the days will now come upon you and your enemies will set a barricade around you and surround you and hem you in on all sides. The great prophecies that would relate to the destruction of this very place in 70 AD. You have chosen a way that is not peace. How did Messiah deal with coming before King Herod? He's facing a lot of political things going on here. In this account here, the context, all right, is political. And King Herod is engulfed with the politics of dealing with a people that are under bondage, Roman bondage. And he's got all sorts of political things going on and dealings with Rome politically as a result of this king who is residing in an area that was under Roman bondage. In this account here, Luke 23:7-10 says this, and when he had learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction. So this is Pilate. And he's getting this stuff, all this politics, and things are going down, and people are getting upset, and the religious and the people and whatnot, all concerning this matter of Yeshua and his disciples. And what Pilate's dealing with is, okay, this is not my jurisdiction. I got enough on my hands here. Send him to Herod. He'll deal with the politics on this one. And he sent over to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at the time. When Herod saw Yeshua, he was very glad, for he had long desired to see him. Tried to kill him first, but and he heard about him, and he was hoping to see a sign that he would do. So there's a religious aspect to Herod, to King Herod, for sure. But this is politics he's dealing with. So this is very interesting. So he questioned him at some length. But Yeshua did what? Yeshua fought him with everything he had and pulled out his dagger. No. He remained silent, peaceable. He's being brought before authorities now. How's he going to deal with these authorities? Was he a hypocrite or did he deal with it correctly? The chief priests and the scribes, so the religious authorities are right there, vehemently accusing him. Well, he's before Herod. They have to do this because they had lost the ability to deal with them in themselves, okay? So just know they have to go through these politics because they can't do it themselves. And what do we see with the beast system having consumed religion today? You got to go through the beast system to deal with things. Goes on to say this, 11:12, and Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt, and they mocked him, then arraying him in splendid clothing and sent him back to Pilate. In other words, no, this is a political matter you're going to have to deal with. But there's something very interesting that's missed here. In the English here, it doesn't capture it very well. It says splendid clothing. It would be like, oh, well, they dressed him up real nice to send him back to Pilate in these political shenanigans. No, they didn't. The word there in the Greek is lampros, shining, brilliant, clear, transparent, magnificent, elegant dress or style. They dressed him and sent him back to Herod in feminine style attire. This is how they chose to mock him. We miss these things. Oh, we just think he's putting on one of Herod's pretty robes and whatnot. No. This is a mocking. And he's going to send a message to to Pilate through this mocking. In other words, I don't see a politics. I got these religious leaders in behind me, but you know what? Nope, not my problem. Sends him back. He says, no, for you to deal with. You can deal with this matter as governor of the region. And Herod and Pilate, as a result of this politics going on, became friends with each other that very day. For before that, they were in enmity with each other. So Yeshua, the mocking of Yeshua, the not dealing with his issue politically, actually united these two politically. Interesting. Very interesting. So Pilate's gone, okay, my problem. And he was sent back. I just mention that because we forget about the mocking and what absolutely was said to Pilate through the type of mocking that was given. About Messiah before the temple guards. How did he deal with that? In Luke 22, 35, 36, this is recorded. He said to them, when I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, did you lack anything? They said, no, nothing. He said to them, so all things were provided there as a part of their servitude. He said to them, but now let the one who has a money bag go and take it, and likewise a knapsack, and let those who have no sword sell his cloak and buy one. Now, this is interesting. Again, under Torah, we are allowed self-defense, and indeed, especially as head of the household, the man's design actually has a requirement to protect his wife and family, that this is a part of it. But this is interesting what he's saying here. He's actually instructing, go buy a sword. What? This wouldn't seem like a peaceful instruction, would it? That doesn't seem like a peaceful instruction, does it? We got things are starting to go down here, and he's saying, hey, go get some swords. Well, that can't be a man of peace. Is that why he actually did it at all? Goes on to say this, for I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors. This is interesting. This isn't going to be a call to violence. This is going to be a fulfillment of those who'd be willing to go there, and he's going to expose it. It's the exact opposite. Whoa. For what is written about me has its fulfillment. And they said, look, master, we have 2 swords. And he said to them, that's enough. That's going to allow me to make the point here, because we're about to encounter some trouble. And he's going to deal with that trouble, not with swords, not with weapons. Very, very interesting. And Isaiah 53:12, which was what he's referring to here, and what's going to be fulfilled through him in the great messianic prophecies, make no mistake about what Isaiah is speaking to, particularly in chapters 52 and 53. Therefore, I'll divide him a portion with many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he has poured out his soul, or nephesh, to death, and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the missing the mark, or the sin of many, and makes intercession for the transgressors. Well, how did this go on to play? A peaceful man is instructed swords, but now he's going to relate to great messianic prophecies that actually are connected to those who would transgress. Now, get this right. And behold, one of those who were with Yeshua stretched out. Of course, that was the disciple Peter. And out of his hand drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So Messiah now takes a peaceful action responsibility to this. Then Yeshua said to him, put your sword back in its place. Now he's going to tell us all how we deal amongst the authorities and the bondage we're under. For all who take the sword will perish by it. We are living under bondage. We are not being commanded to go and take the promised land. We are not being asked to like all the rule that we're under and the lack of wisdom thereof. What it's saying is that we are not going to take up violence against authority. End of story. And Messiah is making this point when he's about to be taken to his death. He says, do you not think that I could appeal to my Father and he will send me at once more than 12 legions of angels? In other words, I can put a stop to all of this. I don't need your stupid little swords. I got you carrying these because I have to make a point of what transgression is. I'm going to allow what they're going to do to me. And I don't need you guys and your swords. Of course, Yeshua healed the ear of this high priest, by the way, as a part of his peaceful response to this, even when they're going to take him to his death. So Messiah before the high priests and elders. What did this look like? In John 18, 19, 21, the high priest then requested Yeshua about his disciples and his teaching. Yeshua answered him, I have spoken openly to the world. So this is interesting. We've got this moment now with Anas here. And what is this representing? He's being brought before him. And Yeshua's answer him says, I have spoken openly to the world. I have done this in the synagogues. In other words, I've not been hiding my teachings. I've not been what? Causing trouble. This is interesting. Where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. What are they actually worried about? What are they trying to accuse him of? That you are sowing discourse, that you are going to bring violence. They're in fear that all these shenanigans are going on. He's saying, I've done nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask the witnesses who heard what I said to them and know what I said. You're up to something here because you know I've not been doing what you're accusing me of. I am not inciting violence. Just the opposite of what they're trying to accuse him of. When he said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Yeshua with his hand, saying, is that how you answer the high priest? The indignation of it all. Here's what's interesting in all of this. Yeshua answered him, if what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. That's fine. But if what I said is right, why are you striking me? Why are you incorporating violence in this moment when I am a man of peace before you? And your accusations are wrong. And look at this. Anas then sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. So he's now going to be done with him. You know what's interesting here? Is Anas in Greek means humble. Oh, that was really humble, wasn't it? He gets violence put upon him on false accusations of a fear that he may be inciting a rebellion. He's treated with violence. And the irony that he's coming before the chief priest with a name that says that it means humble. Are we seeing humility here? We're seeing fear. He sends him off to Caiaphas. Now, the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Yeshua that they might put him to death. Okay, so they're trying to get these witnesses, these false testimonies, but they found none. So I'm reading from Matthew 26, 59 to 63 here. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. And the last two came forward and said, this man said this, I am able to destroy the temple of God, of Elohim, and to rebuild it in 3 days. Surely this is a man of violence. He's talking about a prophecy of judgment that is going to come upon them, that's going to be allowed to because of their violence. This is the irony of what we're seeing. Remember what we saw? He wept over the city, and then he said, you're going because you've chosen a way of violence, because you have not chosen a peaceful path. You are going to be encompassed and surrounded. Now he's pointing out the reality of their non-peaceable choices, and it's going to lead to their judgment, and they're now using this against him to say, see, he's going to incite violence. My goodness. The whole thing has been flipped on its head. And this is why we see recorded in the Brit what he was really doing. He was grieving. You have not chosen a peaceful path. You are choosing the way of violence, and it's going to lead to incur judgment. And the fact he even pointed that out now has these witnesses coming and saying, he's going to destroy the temple. Wow. And the high priest stood up and said, have you no answer to make? You have no answer to make. What is it that these men testify against you? You must be a violent man. Really? So violent, he wept over them not understanding the very thing we're discussing today. But Yeshua remained silent. And the high priest said to him, I adjure you by the living Elohim, tell us if you are Messiah, the son of Elohim. They're getting fed up because the only other option here is somehow this temple being destroyed relates to your authority. They're working this out. If this thing's going to be destroyed, then there's an authority speaking, and they're now going, okay, you tell us. Because if this ain't violence, then this is judgment. And there's only one who can bring this judgment upon the temple. Do you see what's actually happening here? They're working this out. And this is why they bring in, then are you the Messiah? Do you have the authority to bring judgment if it's not violence? Goes on, 64-7 here, Matthew 26. Yeshua said to him, you have said so, but I tell you from now on. This is interesting. I tell you from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. He is directly referring to a coming kingdom, and he is the one. Oh, you got it right, all right. This is judgment. This isn't violence. Whoa. Then the high priest tore his robes and said, he has uttered blasphemy. Oh my goodness, this is getting ridiculous. My only other option here is this is judgment, and only the one who has the power of the throne could make such. Well, we've heard enough. You've now heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment? They answered, he deserves death. Then they spit in his face and struck him and slapped him, saying, prophesy to us, you Messiah. Whoa. Who is it that struck you? What are they referencing here? I'm going to suggest to you it's Isaiah 56. Oh, they know the words of the prophet Isaiah. So they're saying, prophesy to us, you Messiah then, you bringing judgment upon us. You who are peaceable and not uttering violence and stirring up strife amongst the people. Oh, no, are you the one who would bring judgment? Who is it that struck you? Ooh, it's vehement. And they're spitting in his face and striking him as they do it. Do you know they know exactly what they're doing? Isaiah 56. I gave my what back to those who strike, my cheeks to those that pull out the beard. And I did not hide my face from the disgrace and spitting. Whoa, they knew exactly those prophecies. And they're telling him, oh, where's this in your prophecy? Prophesy to us then. If these are about the Messiah, who is it that does this spitting on you? Whoa. This is very, very brood of viper behavior. This is wicked. Now Messiah before Pilate. Before the representing ruler of the beast system. So now we're seeing Pilate and Herod, politics, religion, everything is mixed up. Everything that's going on here. We've got a religion that is in bondage. It now has to answer to the beast system in order to even execute the punishments of its own religion. False accusations, everything going on, all on a peaceable man. And now it's going to come before the beast system. The authority of the beast system. So Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Yeshua and said, so he's come back to them, and this is for sentencing. He's now going to face trial. And he said to him, are you the king of the Jews? Are you the king of the Yehudim? This is Pilate, the authority of the beast system, the ruling authority of the beast system right now in front of him. Are you the king of the Yehudim? Yes or no? I don't know what all this is about. What's going on here? Yeshua answered, do you say this on your own accord? Or are you just saying it because others have said it about me? In other words, is there something going on in your heart, Pilate? In your mind? Interesting. Pilate answered, am I a Yehudim? Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. You're religious. Your authorities are now putting you in the hands of the beast. What have you done? I don't know. I do not understand. What have you done? Yeshua answers, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting. Whoa. In other words, there would not be peace right now. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Isn't this interesting? His kingdom represents something very different from both the prostitute and the beast. And he makes the point that I might not be delivered over to the Yehudim, but my kingdom is not from this world. The blood we have seen on the hands of the world religions and the world beast system is astounding. It is violent. It is not peaceable. It is not these things. And he is saying, believe me, if my kingdom was of the world, you would have such a problem on your hands. It would be beyond understanding. Pilate's getting this. He's going, ooh, good point. Good point, Yeshua. Then Pilate said to him, so you're a king? Yeshua answered, you say that I'm a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world to bear witness of the truth. In what? A violent way or a peaceful way? Everyone who is of truth listens to my voice. Whoa. You mean there's a lot of people that claim to be of the faith that are following the beast politics? And I'd say I'm not sure they're listening to his voice. And I'm not sure what witness they are giving right now, from the pulpits to their personal behavior to their political persuasions. Pilate said to him, what is truth? This is the head of the beast system right now. They're in bondage. What is truth? After he had said this, he went back outside to the Yehudim and told them, I find no guilt in him. This is the beast system. The only thing in this whole thing, the only one that is not finding guilt in Messiah at this time is the head of the beast. Was his witness that great? Was his character that kind, strong, wise, and peaceable, that the head of the beast system who is dealing with the potential for political turmoil is going, even after all this, I find no guilt in him? Do you know, for him to go out in front of this crowd and say, I find no guilt, what that risked? They want guilty, kill him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. He's found the political loophole. He's done his homework. Make no mistake about it. He's understanding what this is all about, at least in the sense of its rules. He's able to say it as a result of this. He's educated. So do you want me to release the king of the Yehudim? No, they cried again. Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. Also his name meaning the son of the father. Son of what father? Oh, your father is wicked. This is interesting. The adversary. You know, they were going to want evil released instead of peace. And now Pilate is going, okay. You people are bent on your violence towards this man, and yet I find no guilt in him. And he's even trying to use a way to release him, and they will not. Interesting. Is it possible, as we come to the end of the age, that we might be more concerned of what the authorities in the religious prostitute system will act, do, and say more than even the beast system? Are we seeing something here? Which one is really gonna come after us? Isaiah 53:8, it says this, and they made his grave with the wicked and with the rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Oh, indeed, his witness was peaceable. There's no way around this. This was his example in bondage amongst political turmoil. with both the religious and the beast system wondering what to do with him. Religion and the beast. Religion came up with put him to death. The beast system said, I found no guilt in him. So what are we headed for this final age? We're coming to the end, and we're going to be into this final age. There's something coming. In Isaiah 52, 13, 14, the great messianic prophets, it says, behold, my servant shall act wisely. Oh, yeah. He acted wisely. Was acting peacefully a part of that wisdom? Oh, you better believe it. He was never weak and nice. He was kind and strong and wise, and it led to peaceable character. He shall be high and lifted up. He shall be exalted. As many were astonished at you, his appearance was so marred, beyond human semblance, and his form beyond the children of mankind. I'd suggest to you what you're seeing here is when he is high and lifted up, as the king has taken his kingdom. Is it possible that we're actually seeing an illusion of the appearance of King Yeshua during the final age and those that would come to visit him from the nations? Is he going to let them see what was done to him? My goodness. There's something coming. There's a kingdom coming. But scripture seems to be indicating that he's going to choose to allow an appearance to be seen of what this was all about for their sake. There's a true beauty in all of this, but it may not be physical. In fact, I'd say the great messianic prophecies are telling you categorically it won't be. Its beauty is far beyond the physical. In Yaakov, what you call the book of James, 3:17, 18. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable. In other words, the wisdom that comes will end in peace, a peaceable action, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy. We'll talk about that a bit more next week. And good fruits, impartial and sincere. And look at this. As a result of this, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. It is fundamental to the character of our Messiah and what is going to make up the components of his character that will have a righteous rule in this final age. The RNA costs to bring peace. Next week, we're going to try and finish our series of the character Messiah, the righteous kingdom. Let's stop there. Religion of the Beast, and we'll come back for the Q&A shortly.